Jake Tapper continues to be on my mind because we continue to talk about the coverage of the Mockingbird media and the continuing evolution of Jake's views. Jake is now saying that President Trump isn't being fully transparent about his health. So they're making that shift from, oh, we're soul searching and conservative media was right. And we're soul searching, but Trump. If Jake Tapper, as emblematic of the Mockingbird media, that's the only reason I'm talking about Jake in this segment. If he really wants to soul search or be the absolution giver or the propitiation of the sins of the Mockingbird media, which Jake is trying to do, he's trying to absolve them so they can once again have credibility. It's not working. He should ask himself about all the coordination that exists within the Mockingbird media. This is not natural. These are competing media entities, and somehow they've all come upon the same description of the meeting President Trump had with the president of South Africa. President Trump's team is not unaware of what the Mockingbird media has tried to say about South Africa. They continue to claim that there is no evidence of what President Trump calls genocide against white South African farmers. They said this prior to the meeting. They continue to say this. And when it's finally confronted to them, or they're finally forced to confront it, it's very, very much like Martha Raddatz saying it's just a small number of apartment buildings in J.D. Vance with the quote of a decade. Martha, do you hear yourself? Mockingbird media members, do you hear yourself? The Daily News, Trump ambushes South African president with videos of attacks on white people. Yahoo News, Trump ambushes South African president with videos claiming to show white genocide. The NPR, Trump ambushes South African president with false claims of white genocide. The Guardian, Trump ambushes South African president in Oval Office with claims of white persecutions. Trump admin, this is the Times. Trump admin ambushes Rambosis with video of racial violence as it happens. And it goes to Axios, it goes to CNN, it goes to The Guardian. It is across the board. And it's not just the headlines in print. We'll look at this in a second in video. Western Lensman put this together. It's coordinated. So Jake Tapper, you want to be the absolution? You want to be the sin solver, the propitiation of the Mockingbird media's sin on that one topic of Joe Biden's dementia? You need to ask yourself why your colleagues all participated in this, including CNN. One word they chose. What President Trump did, if it's an ambush, it's not a very clever one. It's a brilliant political move. It's a brilliant social move. It's a brilliant move for peace. It's a brilliant way to call out what's going on. But it's not an ambush. You can't ambush someone by showing them their words. He's the president of South Africa. You want us to believe he doesn't know this is going on? He doesn't know about the hundreds of thousands of people, tens of thousands at a time, chanting a phrase that is genocidal by definition? So I show you this video in a second, and then we'll talk about people who are actually doing what the Mockingbird media could do if they wanted to do it, because they've certainly got the resources to go do it because they're big business. You might not be big business. You might be small, medium-sized business. It doesn't mean that you can't have corporate credit like big businesses do, and you should, because corporate credit is based upon your employer identification number, not your Social Security number. So why does that matter? Because if you've got a debit card or a credit card with your business name on it and it's tied to your personal credit, as is the case with most small and medium-sized businesses, if God forbid there's a problem and someone sues you, they can go after your personal assets because it is that on which it's based. My friends at Bizible will change this in 7 easy steps. They'll do 90% of the work for you, and then they'll give you a website and an app. You can do the rest on your own, and the rest is simply opening credit. Once that's fixed, that credit grows much more quickly than does personal credit and gives you a bunch of options in terms of leverage and liquidity and payroll management, and I'll make you a guarantee. Go to their website. It's gobizible.com. Here's the guarantee. When you have the free, no-obligation consultation with them, you're going to learn something about your business and your credit rating. Well, you don't think you've got a corporate credit rating? You do. Probably just not a good one. The website is gobizible.com. be like a big business and protect yourself that way. Western Lensman is a great, great follow on Twitter, and he put together a fantastic series of videos showing the coordination of the word ambush.
To the dramatic scene in the Oval Office today, the tense confrontation, President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
Up next, another Oval Office meltdown, President Trump ambushing the president of South Africa.
President Trump is being accused of conducting something of a diplomatic ambush of South Africa's president in the Oval Office.
To be with you, I'm Katie Tur. President Trump orchestrated another Oval Office ambush today.
Today, Donald Trump meeting with the president of South Africa and attempting to ambush and humiliate that leader.
Zelensky territory, where essentially he was a bit ambushed inside the Oval Office.
Felt like an ambush in there, kind of like the President Zelensky meeting in the Oval Office.
This was an ambush. It was orchestrated.
Cyril Ramaphosa brought his best diplomatic self to this meeting, but nothing could have prepared him for this multimedia ambush.
What started as, to some degree, an ambush.
Well, Katie, I mean, it was an ambush.
Ambush.
Ambushed.
Ambush.
An ambush.
Ambushing.
Ambushed inside the Oval Office.
These are all competing media entities. They're going after the big story. They're fighting tooth and nail for revenue and viewership, but they all chose the same word. Do you think that's not coordinated? What likely happened is it came down from the DNC or one of their organs, or it came from inside the State Department, people who hate Marco Rubio and hate President Trump, and the Mockingbird media lapped it up. Stay home, stay safe. Mockingbird media laps things like that up. President Trump claims without evidence that the Hunter Biden laptop is genuine. So if Jake Tapper wants to play this role, then play it, Jake. And what you could do is you could go to South Africa. You've got the resources. You could send reporters down there. You could do what Katie Hopkins did. Katie Hopkins is a fearless journalist. She has taken on gender extremism in the UK. She's been attacked for that. She's been brutally treated. She's been chased around with acid, and she doesn't back off. Katie Hopkins is a fearless journalist who goes and exposes the fact that, you know, those beautiful rolling hills of Scotland, there's a whole bunch of solar panels being placed on those hills that have been seized by farmers and from farmers and families. And the solar panels are coming from where? China. Containing what? Coal. She exposes this, and the UK government, the Scottish government, hates her for it. In 2018, she went to South Africa. Now, because we put some of this content up on YouTube, we can't show you the documentary because we'd have our monetization withdrawn. I talked about it on Substack. I talk about it on the radio. I used the words of my Radio America show on my Disciples View program on American Family Radio. We're very precise about that. If you listen to the audio versions of our podcasts, you've got the straight story of what's being done to farmers. Since this is going on YouTube, here's their rules. Ready? Katie Hopkins went and spent the night with white farming families. She said that's when the monsters come out. She asked a woman for how long she was. A woman described the monsters, they call them, coming at night and taking her husband, and then she didn't have a husband anymore. And the happened in front of her kids. Her kids were forced to watch as their father was, and then they didn't have a father. She talked to farmers who refused to leave. She ran video of people saying, and these were black people saying, if you don't do what we tell you to do, we are going to, and then you won't have anymore. That's the way they prefer to have stories told. Are you reading between the lines? 87, I think they said in that year, 87 farmers unalived. But there's no evidence for any of this at all, except for this. Here is the president of South Africa who was ambushed, as you know, and he's talking to white people in South Africa. And hear how he's uniting them with a great message of don't be cowards.
In many ways, and none of us ever having to want to run away to another country for fictional reasons that we are being persecuted. We are united in diversity, and none of us should ever feel that they have lost courage. that they've now become cowards and want to run. Ons bly hier. Ons is Suid-Afrikaners en ons gaan hier bly.
There is, in fact, a new law in South Africa. And I was watching NPR's coverage, and this should have grabbed this clip. And they were talking about this new law because the spokesperson coming from South Africa says, well, there's no land confiscation going on. What's happened is the government has passed a law saying that the government can come and take farms from white farmers without compensation. But that's not confiscating land. The apartheid that occurred in South Africa is a harm. It's a sin. It's a sin issue. The unaliving of farmers is a sin issue. We're not going to solve this. Sin issues aren't going to be done away with, not before the new heaven and the new earth. In the new heaven and new earth, under the Lord Jesus as king, who's king now, but undisputed king. Because the people in the new heaven and new earth will have followed Christ and be excited to follow him. That stuff won't exist there. It exists here. We're not going to solve it. But what President Trump did, it wasn't an ambush. You can't ambush a person by saying, hey, here's some words you spoke. Those are words he spoke. On the topic of the media and the Mockingbird media and Jake Tapper trying to be the propitiation, the payment for their sins, trying to indemnify them from further harm by coming out and admitting, oh, we got fooled. You didn't get fooled. You participated, just like you're participating now. Ambush, ambush, ambush. Remember this? Cheap fake, cheap fake, cheap fake. You guys took that word right off the spoon that the White House gave you and you started using it. You tried to make it about age. This is all about President Biden's age, you said. President Trump's old too. You tried to play that game. No one bought it. But on the topic of South Africa, you can come right back to the media organs and their roles within this. The New York Times is still, to this day, within the Mockingbird media, they're the tone setter. And they came out with the champion of all but Trump statements. President Trump is talking about white farmers at risk of their lives coming to the United States as refugees and losing their farms. Here's what the On Politics newsletter in the New York Times said about President Trump. This is the ultimate but Trump. Ready? Headline: when Trump was the one taking land from farmers. The president railed against South Africa's seizure of land from white farmers, but during his first term, he pushed to take land for his border wall using eminent domain. And incidentally, if you want to search that phrase, Trump, eminent domain, border wall, go to Google and search it. And what you'll find out is, once again, massive coordination from the Mockingbird media. They were all calling this out and comparing it. You're talking about a small amount of border fence area being taken by eminent domain, and 95% of the farmers there, ranchers saying, please, please do this. Jake Tapper, you are not the propitiation for sin. That's Jesus. You can't even do it for your own industry.